How's it going? Have we been squishing some bugs?
Yeah, I fixed the bug that I was seeing the
The
request block
timestamp?
later where the block finder was returning block number 0 for the base block. It's now correct. But the hashes are still different because I think the difficulties are different. For us, it's straight 0.
What is says here, the hash or the block number that you're fetching?
No, I fixed I mean I fixed the issue that I was getting last time.
Yeah.
It's it's the properly populating the request for block parameter, and for the block finder was returning the wrong block number. But the hashes are still different. That's what I'm saying.
So the block hash, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Is but not the block hash of the parent. You now get the parent to match, I guess.
Yeah, for the first block, the parent hash is correct.
Yeah. Are there any other fields that are different? Is the block size
Yeah,
still
yeah.
different?
Yeah, block size didn't see, but I see difficulty is different. Total difficulty and difficulty size is different as well.
Or I don't remember how the total difficulty is calculated nowadays. Isn't I thought the difficulty is supposed to be 0 always, but or was it repurposed to something else?
The field in the block header, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be. I can check the IP. I thought it was always 0 now.
And there's difficulty and the total difficulty. I think the total difficulty is that frozen to some number and the difficulty is always 0. Or...
Total difficulty isn't part of the block. Another mine team has wanted it to be part of the block for a long time, but they have not been able to get it actually included.
Oh, so it's otherwise. Expected 0, but we are actually populating with some number.
It shouldn't be part of the block header if I remember correctly.
And remember, if get is returning total difficulty. I don't remember seeing that.
Like
Okay.
the clients keep track of it, but it's not part of consensus. If I remember correctly, the thing that's part of consensus, the thing that's in the block header, is the difficulty for that block.
There's total difficulty, yes, and get returns some number to it. But the difficulty on get is 0, but the total difficulty is some 0xC70 and something else.
I see. So yeah, so there's two things. One is the consensus data structure, which does not include total difficulty. Two is the block object returned when you ask for a block over JSON RPC, which includes things that are not part of the consensus data structure. And total difficulty.
Yeah, but basically that's what we care about, what is returned in basically. But yeah, for the then of course we care about the consensus one, but I think we don't see what's underneath. We just see what's returned.
Yep.
The consensus one contains the prev Randall now. So
in the block header?
In the block header, yes, difficulty was replaced with Randall value. So it has some value. And I believe that get is returning.
I don't think that's correct. I believe the difficulty field in the block consensus block header is 0. And there's a new field at the end of the block header. Like I'm looking at the EIP 4399 right now. And it says the difficulty block field must be 0 thereafter because there's no longer any proof of work.
Oh, right. Okay.
You're thinking about
we're not actually storing the Randall
Yeah, you're
value.
thinking about the opcode changed from the difficulty opcode now returns prev rando.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
We are not returning the rundown in the receipt either.
Yeah, it's
see. The mix hash field was.
No, mix hash is the rundown.
I think so.
Yeah, the mix hash is
difficulty was kept so that there's no problem during the merge, like no confusion for the clients. And instead, the mix hash header field was repurposed to use Pref Randall.
And then the total difficulty is constant, I guess, nowadays.
The
So
total difficulty is stored by each client in a separate index. And I believe we wanted to remove it, and it was merged in the specs, in the execution API specs. So all of the other methods have dropped total difficulty, I think.
Oh yeah, our client has still our node still has total difficulty. We haven't updated for a while.
Let me check if it was merged in Geth. But I'm pretty sure it was merged in the specs.
Yeah, I remember it now.
Yes, it was merged in Geth.
okay, so for the test, I can see that total difficulty field is not expected. I'll remove it, and the difficulty field should be 0. For neither mind, it's different, some number there.
I think we can. Would everybody be okay with just removing total difficulty from the returned block header object entirely?
It's removed.
Oh, it is removed. So
Need to
in
check from the
ETH simulate does not include total difficulty as part of the returned block values.
Is
that
check
correct?
the PR.
I'll remove this. Last week I couldn't do much because I fell sick. So yeah, I'll remove this total difficulty block field, header field.
Yeah, we don't have total difficulty, but we have the difficulty. Is the difficulty still needed though?
I mean, it's not needed. It's always 0. It's just a.
But the user, it can be overridden.
It can be. I mean, I guess we can allow users to override it. I don't know if the clients will all agree on what happens when you override it, because by definition, it is set to 0. And so a client could be spec compatible and consensus compatible and not actually look at that field.
No, actually, it's not in the override field, so it cannot be overridden. But it just
So, I mean,
returned.
we can return it. Maybe there's some value. At least it makes it consistent with what's the consensus data structure. Like, it does feel like we should return all the parts of the consensus data structure, even when the consensus data structure is dumb and has extraneous bytes in it.
I guess then the block sizes or something returned. Is that used somewhere? That's also has been wondering for a long time why it's different on Get and Nethermind.
Block size is, I guess, technically part of consensus in the sense that the RLP needs to match exactly. And so by definition, block size is kind of, you can extract the block size by just counting the number of bytes in the RLP.
But I don't know if that's how it's defined. Maybe there's different definition how to calculate the block size. Like, do you include a header and everything, or you just include the transactions and the state changes?
Yeah, I'm not sure what size is supposed to. You're talking about just the size field, right?
I think it's called size.
Yeah, I'm looking at the eSimulate notes.
Yeah, it's only size.
Yeah. Joachim even suggested at one point just getting rid of the size field, which I'm not opposed to.
Well, I think it's somewhat can be useful field for us if we understand why it's different. It might be something that it should be the same, but it's not, and then that could kind of explain why the block hashes are not matching. That's why I find it more easier to kind of check than the block hash.
I feel like if you have mismatched block hashes, the first step you should take is get an RLP of each client's block and compare them. And having the size is not a step that I would, if I was troubleshooting a disconnect between clients, I wouldn't look at the size. If I got a block hash mismatch, I would look at the RLPs and compare them and see where the difference lives. Maybe there's some scenario where looking at the size would help, but I would rather just skip straight to the RLP comparison.
That also doesn't help with the if the state is different.
Oh, right. So you do an RLPO comparison, and then if you see that the state hash is different, then you know where your problem is, and you go investigate why the state hash is different.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, okay, so if there is a block hash mismatch, first thing I would do is compare the JSON outputs of each and see if there's an obvious difference there. And that's where you'd see the receipt route, the transaction route, the state route, etc. If all those look the same, then I would look at the RLP version of from each client and compare those. And if those are the same, it means there's an error in your hashing function. If those are different, then you can narrow down where your error is. I don't think I would ever look at size for troubleshooting.
But yeah, I used to see blocks where everything is matching except the hash and the block size.
Yeah, so I would get rid of blocks. I would get rid of the size, and then just make sure there's a way for each client to return its RLP somehow. It can be a dev method or whatever. What was that?
For now, difficulty is not matching for us some number, so I'll first get rid of that, then I'll compare the RLPs because everything is LSM.
On that note, we changed the timestamp increment to 12 seconds. So that should now match with Nethermind as well.
Yeah, I reverted it to original value 12.
Did you make Micah mean that we should get rid of the size field? And I'm a bit against that because I thought the spec should be frozen and we shouldn't touch it anymore. And I don't think it's that big deal that it's there.
Yeah, I mean, for that's I think the strongest argument for leaving it, and I would defer to that if that's what people want.
And yeah, I'm not actually sure it could be useful for some reason, depending how it's defined. I don't really know how the block size is defined. And I guess that's something that we should kind of look into how it's defined.
Yes, I mean, it's not part of consensus, so each client may be defining it differently, which is we should standardize.
Is that if you do the get block by hash or get block by number, I think you can get the size variable there as well. So that's where it comes from.
Yes, it's the same.
Right, but there's a good chance that the clients don't return the same value.
That's interesting to know. Do those methods match on it, on the historical blocks?
Okay, that's my date.
I guess then we still have the pending question of what to do with the gas estimation stuff.
Didn't you guys decide that last week?
We did, but I don't know if you agree on it, and if you don't agree, then that's good luck.
Spec's frozen, can't change it.
Well, we didn't write the spec, but my preference was that we make a V2 method, and the only feature it has is that, and maybe now we can remove the block size as well. But then I don't know how much the client people enjoy that. Then we would have the V1 and V2 method. Is that something that people are against or not?
No, I wouldn't see why it would be an issue to have a V2 method.
That's also my preference. You simulate V2, and it has an additional flag that allows you to tell the client that you would like to get the gas estimation done as part of the call on a per transaction basis. So each transaction that you supply would have like a flag on it saying, I would like the estimate, I'd like you to estimate gas for this transaction when you execute it. That's my preference.
I wouldn't make the gas limit so that you can leave it out, or you can put a number to it, or you can put a string like estimate to it. But I guess Get didn't like that idea.
Oh yeah, I mean, not from an implementation point of view, but my argument was mostly regarding the providers. But I haven't I haven't asked anybody yet in about that. So still pending from my side.
But you would be fine if it's that kind of like variable that can be kind of missing number or a string, then that's fine. Or would you prefer that we add a new variable instead, like estimate. Like estimate true or false or something like that.
Yeah, I think that having it as an explicit flag is better.
The problem with
Well,
explicit flag is that then you can set it to true and then you can set your gas limit and then it might be a bit unclear for the user. Do you use that gas limit or do you estimate or it's kind of a
yeah,
bit
because
vague.
we already have a default procedure for gas limit, right? So we have this thing that we take the whole amount of block gas limit and reduce it by how much was processed, something like that. So yeah, I guess it's a bit confusing which one will be used, but I think it's actually not that bad. Like if we have a basically gas strategy, something like that, advanced or accurate versus dumb.
That could be interesting if you want to allow different kind of gas strategies, but that would then make everything more complicated.
Yeah.
Maybe you could pass kind of EVM code and you could kind of write your own gas estimation logic on that with the opcodes.
Please provide us with a gas estimation algorithm in EVM bytecode.
Exactly. I didn't understand your gas limit true. I would put gas limit kind of estimate, like string estimate.
Sure.
Or
The
something.
idea is just it's a string. My biggest issue with that is just not all languages do well with properties on objects that have multiple types, like union types like that. So some languages really do make it are very easy to do number or null, very hard to do number or null or a string as the type.
Yeah, C# is not great with that, but it's doable.
Yeah, it's also doable. I would argue it's not as clean, but
Yeah. I think it's doable in all languages, and we know it is because it's required for the block tag, which is a number or latest. And so we know all the clients can do it. But if I remember correctly, it's kind of ugly and a pain in the butt in some languages. And it'd be nice if we don't do more things that are a pain for some languages.
If we do the other method, then we somehow need to agree that what do we do if there's a kind of multiple kind of conflicting rules, like there's the gas limit and then there's the estimate please flag.
I would say the gas limit represents the upper bound. That would be my vote. So the first try would be at the gas limit provided, and then you would go through your normal bisect, and then you would see how much it costs. If it reverts, you just return the revert. Don't try anything else. If you use less, then you would try it again with less. So same strategy as we have now, but just don't use the 30 million gas as the starting point.
That's even more complex. I was just thinking that if the estimate is set, then it just wouldn't care about the gas limit at all.
You could do that. I wouldn't be opposed if people think that's significantly easier.
But Sina, can you ask around if this would be something that the other providers would be kind of preferring? That they would be fine with this kind of thing?
I can try.
I suspect the answer you're going to get from the providers is, I don't know.
Yeah. And when we have implemented, then say that it's dumb because of this reason. That's kind of what happened with the It simulator, that they wanted more features to it after we had done everything.
That's always what happens.
Well, good feedback for V2 or V3.
Yeah. Okay,
Do
is
you feel
anybody...
that this is the most important feature to have for V2, or would rather the V2 be something else than this? But I would imagine that this is quite important.
I know for Interceptor, it's one of the biggest pain points, right? Gas estimation.
Well, it somewhat works.
Sure, but I mean,
But
this
yeah.
is like we've had to hack around it quite a bit. Like it requires a bunch of code on our side, and it's not perfect.
Yeah.
I think the second
So do
biggest.
you think it's better to put the complexity in the nodes instead of our software?
Yes,
So it's
because the
better.
nodes already have the code and already have to have the code because
Oh,
of
yeah.
other methods. So unless we want to make it so clients don't do gas estimation anymore, which I'm guessing people would be fairly against. There are some benefits to having gas estimation being done on the node directly because the node can keep around some portion of the state that it needs in order to do the estimate. Whereas if you try to do it remotely by just make a call, try it, get the result, make a call, try it, get the result, then the client has to reconstruct all that state each time. Whereas the estimate can keep a lot of stuff in memory. And so I do think there's performance reasons to put it on the client. And so I'd be kind of against removing it. And I don't think anyone wants to remove it either. I think the other thing that Interceptor runs into, correct me if I'm wrong here, Kalari, is off-chain calls interleaved in all of this, like balance checks and code checks, things like that, right? Like we have to go through some effort for that to work in Interceptor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's being able to add other queries that occur at certain points in the simulation stack would be useful for us. I don't know if it's worth adding to ETH Simulate directly, though.
But we can already do that. You can just put calls between transactions. Of course, inside transaction you cannot do anything, except you can still change some contract, and then you can kind of make it through calls between.
Right. We
the
can't.
overrides.
An example of something we can't do is we can't generate a proof, right? And so there's no way from inside of the EVM to do the equivalent of ETH get proof.
Yeah, but nobody's using that, I guess. Well,
I mean,
yeah,
sure.
maybe that's why.
See you later. Yeah. It'd be nice if people started doing proofs more. Like the whole system is designed to be provable in various ways, and very few people leverage that. But it is something we can't currently do. So we can't have a simulation stack and then generate a valid proof on top of that simulation stack, which then we use to generate more transactions for that stack. And so if there was an app out there that required such a proof, which they do exist, I wrote one a long time ago, we couldn't use Interceptor for it or ETH Simulate. Just mild annoyance.
Yeah.
Is anyone, meaning Rohit or Lucas, against making ETH Simulate v2 do gas estimation?
No, not really. But how would we do it? We were discussing that with sometimes gas estimations need multiple passes, and would we do multiple passes on those?
Yeah, so the idea would be normal gas estimation strategy. Each transaction that is given as part of the ETH Simulate call would have a flag set on it, whether it defaults to false, where basically the caller says, I would like the node to give me a gas estimate for this transaction. If that flag is set, then the node would go through the normal gas estimation process. And when it comes to rate limiting, the node would keep track of every execution required as part of the gas estimation towards the rate limit. So we've got that like 100 million gas rate limit or whatever it is that's configured on the client. If you have to do 6 calls of a transaction to estimate, then each of those are counted towards your rate limit cap.
Okay, give me a second. I'm looking at one thing.
The other option would be to have some kind of limit how many gas estimates you can
Yeah,
do,
okay,
but I think with gas it's better.
Sorry guys, we will use the same error margin as we have for ETH estimate gas currently, right? Because there's an error margin there configured, for example.
What's the error margin?
So the idea was that Geff introduced this some time ago, and we copied it. That we don't estimate gas to like the smallest detail, but just to some error margin. To avoid re-executing the transaction a few times more.
Yes.
And it's configurable for us in JSON RPC configuration.
When the user makes an ETH estimate gas call, they can pass in a parameter.
No. No, it's for the node because
Oh, I see.
ETH estimate gas doesn't have this as an option. We didn't add a non-default
see.
option. We could,
see.
but we could add it here if you want.
I mean, that would be interesting. I'm open to discussing that. I just misunderstood initially. So yes, all that would be the same. So the same strategy that you use for estimate gas would be applied in ETH simulate when the user asks for it.
I don't have anything against.
Okay.
One thing to keep in mind here that I think Get and Nethermind probably would return a bit different gas for these estimates, and I think that's probably fine.
I think we are returning more or less the same at the moment. So maybe there will be differences, but there shouldn't be. Like we kind of tried to align.
No, more or less is not exact in a way, but yes.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's the current state, so I haven't like tested it thoroughly to be sure it's the exact same thing. But
there might be some edge cases.
Yeah, we did try to align, so I'm not sure if we aligned perfectly or imperfectly yet. Or
I mean, at the least, my guess is if there are little edge cases, we could at least write tests that for Hive that would work on both clients.
But then there's Red, and Red also might have different strategy.
That's true. Yeah. Okay. So maybe the question here is are clients allowed to use different strategies for gas estimation, or is it part of the spec that you have to use a certain strategy? And it does seem like we should allow clients to use different strategies.
Yeah, I would go with that you can have different strategies.
Okay, so when it comes to any tests we write, we just need to make sure that the gas estimation is not part of the test.
Or you can add a test that the gas estimation is within some boundaries, let's say of 10, 15, 20%, and it's above minimal, right? Needed.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Like this transaction should succeed, and it should have about this much gas, and you have some variance in what's allowed. Yeah, I guess that's fine.
The problem with that is that then the block hashes and everything after that will be different, but you can just check that the gas
estimation is not in the block hash.
I mean that the idea is that you can do multiple estimations, and if even one of those differs, then it will change all the blocks that are coming after that. The idea is that you can do multiple estimation in one. And then you kind of estimate the transaction and then you include it in the block. I think that was the idea.
Well, the estimation shouldn't change the actual execution.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be part of the test. The test would have pre-written transactions added, right? Like I don't think right now we have any tests where the test doesn't estimate gas and then includes then calls simulate a second time using that gas.
No, I mean that I thought the point is that you can do each simulate v2 met call, and then you can set some of the transactions to be estimate, and it would kind of estimate them all on top of each other, and then add all the other transactions there as well. So whatever the estimate returns, that is going to be used right away in the blocks.
I see what you're saying. You're saying that if the user leaves the gas limit off, then the transaction is included in the block without a gas limit or a gas limit of 0, I guess.
I mean, it always has some gas limit. We don't have,
right, so
there's no gas limit 0.
What is the gas? So right now, you have to get a transaction hash for the transaction, right? And so in order to get the transaction route, so you can get the block hash, etc. Right now, if you do not set a gas in your JSON RPC call, what does it default to? A gas limit?
We created the algorithm that is the kind of all the gas is left divided by the number of transactions that don't have the gas set.
Yeah, okay. So you're suggesting that if they set the gas limit to estimate, then the node should do an estimation and then include that transaction in the block with a gas limit set to the value that was estimated. I see.
And then it continues the kind of the simulation.
Yeah, so I was imagining that it would still just use the block limit or remaining gas in block divided by transactions without gas limit. For that transaction, it would just return the estimate to the user so they could utilize it in the future.
I would include in the block right away with the returned gas limit.
Yeah, I do like the idea of having it included in the block with the estimated gas, but the exact problem you mentioned is going to be kind of a sticking point. Because
No, I
clients
don't think it's a
don't all
problem if we
estimate.
just agree that when there's an estimate, then we don't care about if the returns are the same.
You're saying like we just don't write any tests that compare the block hash when the estimate is true?
Yeah, I wouldn't compare the blocks. Well, you could compare something that you assume that should be still true, but yeah, like block hash should be the same.
Right.
Unless the gas limits happen to be the same.
Right, but we wouldn't test on that because gas limits don't have to be the same, or gas estimation doesn't have to be the same algorithm for every client.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could maybe be convinced. I lean a little bit more towards just not using the estimate because it feels simpler and it allows us to have our clients returning consistent values. I like determinism basically, and including in consensus stuff and specs validation.
Then we need to return some kind of gas estimation value. I was just thinking that that could be the right away the gas limit. So then the return, it seems like return would be exactly the same.
No, interesting. Yeah, I was thinking you would return a new field with the gas limit, but I see what you're saying. That, yeah, that's.
I think it's also nice that if you then you right away know what kind of what does the transaction return when you are setting that gas limit and what is the outcome of it.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely advantages, and really the only downside is determinism in our tests.
Like with if we don't have it, then I think with the intercept as well, we would still need to make like two calls that you first need to estimate the transaction and then we need to actually see what the transaction does.
Well, I mean, you could assume somewhat safely that the transaction is going to do the same thing, but you're right, that is not a guarantee.
Well, I think that's the point why we are doing that because we know it's not always do the same thing.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, I can be convinced to go with what you're suggesting.
But the nice thing is about that is that then you can estimate multiple transactions at the same time, and they are all included with the kind of the gas prices.
Yeah.
The gas limits. Anything else? I guess for this, then at some point I probably could write the spec for the V2, I guess.
Yeah, at some point we should probably do that. I don't know when the right time. Like right now we're just discussing what is V2. Maybe we should everybody just over the next week think about what should be in V2. These would be things that other users have suggested, feedback we've gotten for what people ask for. I don't know if anyone here gets feedback on these methods, and then maybe talk about including those in V2. See what we want to include, what we don't. Sounds like we got the gas limit thing and removing the size from the block header or from the block.
I have also this write-up. I guess I could that had some ideas that we discussed beforehand. There's the witness creation. Is that witness creation is the same thing as the get proof?
No, witness is basically just the. I mean, you can have an untrusted witness or a trusted witness. The point is that it gives you all of the state necessary to execute the block locally. So if you had a local EVM, you could run it given the block and the witness. And then in theory, the witness can also be proven. And so you could include a proof of the witness that the witness was valid. That being said, I'm hesitant to go through the effort to do that until Ethereum mainnet transitions to whatever they're going to transition to, whether it's vertical trees or something similar. Just because we're going to have to redo all that when the time comes.
Okay.
Yeah, some of these
I guess not everything else. I added the gas limit stuff to that blog post. Right. See you next week, I guess.
Yeah, one change. I think we tentatively wanted the second option, gas limit separate from the gas estimation Boolean field. not a union type. Yeah, like that.
Hello.
Then we just need to agree what to do if those both are defined.
Yeah, I'm okay with what you suggested.
Hello.
What'd you say, Mercy? Yep.
Sorry, can I say something? So I was trying to figure out if there's like a GitHub discussion similar to the other ones we have with core devs meeting and all of that, because most of the time I get lost in the meeting topics.
Are you wondering like? Sorry, go ahead.
Is there an order like similar to the one with core devs or the other meetings that we do have? Because sometimes trying to get track of what is going to be discussed in the call, I can't like really pinpoint what exactly.
Oh, no, this call is very informal. We don't have like an agenda each week other than there's a Telegram channel you can join. I'll get a link to it if you're not already there. But otherwise, we basically just show up and I mean, almost everybody here is either implementing or otherwise using this new method that we're working on. And so we just kind of each week show up, talk about our progress. It's very informal compared to the core devs call. I don't know how to, does anyone know how to invite into Telegram? I don't actually know how to work Telegram. Oh, here it is.
I don't think you can give a invite link. I think you need to invite specifically.
In chat there's an invite link to the Telegram channel if you'd like to join. And so sometimes we'll mention in that channel, we'll talk throughout the week about things we're working on. And then someone will say, oh, maybe we should talk about this at our next call. And that's the closest thing we have to an agenda or any sort of organization for this call.
Okay, cool. Because during the last it's cat headers meeting, something like this was discussed.
I feel like this is one of those things that there's good AIs out there for. I see them joining all of these other meetings I'm in where an AI joins a meeting, says a note taker. Are there any good meeting summarizer AIs these days? I've never used them. I just see other people using them all the time.
I think we used to have one here at some point long time ago.
I would have no problem with some AI note taker summarizer joining these meetings and automatically generating notes. What is the one that you think I'd remember? Because I have some meetings I show up in Zoom and there's like 15 note takers and they all post in chat saying, I'm an AI note taker. You can go to this link. And you'd think by now I would have memorized the names of them, but I do not know the name of any of them, despite them spamming every single Zoom meeting I'm in just about. I'm also fine if someone else wants to take, I'm similar boat with Kalori. It's not something that I would like to do, but I have no problem if someone here wants to start taking notes and, throw up an issue, and even feel free to mention me in it and I can review and just verify that everything was captured. That being said, the advantage of an AI note taker is the AIs are surprisingly good at understanding what's going on, even in complex topics. And so it has the advantage of unlike a human where you need to have specific knowledge of a topic sometimes, AIs are very good at doing it without, or rather they have all that specific knowledge because they have all knowledge on the internet. Okay, so before next week, I will try to make note of what these AI note-taking apps are. Or if Mercy, if you find some, feel free to share them in the eSimulate, or you can mention me. I'm also in the Cat Herders Discord. If you want to mention me there, I can let you know if it's one of the ones I've seen used.
Anything else?
Not for me.
Yeah, see you next week.
Yep, see you guys next week.
Bye.